who is the secondary backup. If the entire team is not available, what can we do to arrange backups from somewhere else to ensure at least basic services are up and running? Back in 2010, when I was in Karachi, there was a bomb blast behind the PIDC building, and the attack was on the CID building, but there were many different offices nearby which were impacted. And I was in the PPL, Pakistan Petroleum's head office, and we were also impacted. It was around 11 o'clock at night. And even though I was not that injured, alhamdulillah, but there were many friends and many people who got injured in nearby buildings. So if those people are injured, assume one organization, their entire marketing department or entire technology or let's say accounts department is impacted. Some of them are injured severely, 2 or 3 deaths. So the entire department is not working at all. I see a hand. Arif, you want to say something? Maybe by mistake. It's fine. Yeah. So assume the entire department is not available because of some reason. People are not available right now. So what will happen? Can the organization afford to stop working completely? Of course not. So they need to find some ways or some solution to continue to operate and deliver the services which they are expected to do. It's okay. So business continuity management enables you to do all those things. How? By making sure you find alternates to the 6 process enablers which we talked about earlier. If my building is not available, it has been impacted, then I need to find an alternate location or I can work from home. I need to have backup equipment available or tools available. I need to have disaster recovery arrangements for all my technology services, succession planning for my people, archiving my data so that if data is lost or data is corrupted, I can recover or restore. And I need to have backups for my critical suppliers and vendors. Assume there is a bank which is relying on one third party or critical supplier to provide materials for checkbooks. They are printing their checkbooks. Same third party is printing their, you can say, credit cards and debit cards, and that third party is disrupted because of some reason. Can the bank stop issuing checkbooks and credit cards for a month or so? Of course not. They will be impacted heavily. So they need to have at least an alternate third party identified so that if a time comes, they can contract with them and recover and restore their service quickly as soon as possible with minimum loss of time. So the entire focus of business continuity management has always been to ensure we recover the business in a timely fashion, reducing the impact of the disruption. So here, this is the key. Reducing the impact of disruption means disruption will happen and impacts will happen. But the question becomes then, is it sufficient? Can all businesses afford outages or downtime? Security forces, defense systems, hospitals, power, water, sewage systems, space technology systems, oil and gas organizations, airports, airlines, all these systems in the current world, in the developed world, I would say at least, these systems, these technologies, these services, they cannot afford a downtime. Means they cannot afford disruption because a disruption of even 5 minutes for them is going to cause huge impact on their reputation, huge impact on their legal and regulatory obligations to the government or to the businesses they are supporting, or can have huge financial impact on them. Imagine a security organization which is safeguarding your country's borders and their systems are down for 15 minutes. What does it mean? That your borders are going to be totally unguarded for the next 15 minutes. Can you afford that? Of course not. Imagine you are a bank, a huge bank. Let's talk about State Bank of Pakistan. They have very high, I would say, I hope so, sophisticated security infrastructure. And they have a security operations center, which we call the SOC. Can the SOC afford to stop working for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? Never. So SOC for any critical organization needs to be up and running all the time. Means 24/7, 365 operations. Can such organizations afford disruption? The answer is no. So even though they are implementing business continuity management, are they successful? Are they achieving what they are supposed to do? Sadly, not. Because an outage of 15 minutes, an outage of 30 minutes, an outage of 1 hour for them is unacceptable. The risk is too big for them. They cannot afford even such level of an outage because the impact is unimaginable for them. So if disaster recovery is not their solution and business continuity is also not the right solution for them, then what is? The answer for them is transforming typical business continuity, which revolved around health, safety, and security, emergency response, disaster recovery, and crisis management, transforming it to resilience. What does resilience mean? In very simple terms, in layman language, if I talk about, resilience means an ability to absorb the impact or the shock of whatever has happened, accommodate, and continue to deliver whatever you are expected to do, even on a reduced level, but continue. Do not stop. So the definition says ability of a system or a community, if we're talking about, let's say, a city or a society, exposed to hazards. So the ability to resist to those hazards, absorb the shock of it, accommodate and recover from the impacts in a timely and efficient manner while continuing to operate at an acceptable level. This is a very simple, I would say, common terminology which we use in Karachi. We say people in Karachi are resilient. What does this mean? कुछ भी कर लो कराची वालों के साथ वो सर्वाइव कर लेंगे. नो मैटर व्हाट यू डू, हालात कैसे भी हों, कराची चलता रहेगा. बट इज इट द राइट माइंडसेट that we should not do anything and we'll continue? We'll keep stressing the people, we'll keep stressing the infrastructure, keep stressing the environment just because it has been surviving, so it will continue to survive. But are we surviving in reality? Or we are just fed up now? Exactly. So, whatever we face today in our life, day to day manner, is something because nobody's thinking about doing something. Nobody's thinking about making the change. Nobody's thinking about the right direction. But in a corporate world, or even if you talk about developed organizations or developed countries, cities and countries, they talk about resilience. We have organization resilience, which we sometimes call enterprise resilience. We have city resilience, and we have national resilience. These countries or these cities or these organizations, they focus on not just recovering their technology or not just recovering their systems after disruption, they start talking about preventing a downtime, making sure there is no outage, making sure their critical services continue to operate even if they are degraded for some time, but they will never be disrupted. They were critical organizations during COVID which continued to operate even though they were badly and severely impacted, especially some hospitals, emergency services, security forces. There were certain pharmaceutical companies which continued to operate and they delivered amazingly across the world. But how did this happen? They were also impacted. Their staff were also impacted. They had deaths, thousands of them, but they continued to operate because their systems were in place. The processes were in place. Now, who developed those processes? People like us. Fortunately, it was people like us, the cybersecurity professionals. I was leading 10 different organizations. What's not right is basically asking people to continue to tolerate this behavior. That just since you are resilient or you have been resilient, continue to do so. हम कुछ नहीं करेंगे आपके लिए. आप बर्दाश्त करते रहो, करते रहो, करते रहो. A point comes when that bardasht level finishes completely. So either you leave the country, which is happening these days, or you stand up, which is also happening in these days. But what's the right solution? The mindset is the solution. In your house, in your area, in your family, in your school, university, organization, in your city, and then in your country eventually. The moment you start putting a resilient mindset, not the mindset which we call resilient, that keep doing it, nothing is going to go wrong. No, the right mindset to anticipate what can go wrong. Yeah, it's fine. To anticipate what can go wrong, to think how much it can impact me, then identify the right solutions and ensure that whenever it happens, it does not disrupt my work. If we put this mindset in our day to day activities, in our systems, in our environment, in our organizations, and then build our cities and our and societies on this mindset, we will turn out to be successful and we will be able to tolerate and mitigate the issues and threats which we face every single day. So this is what entire the concept of resilience is all about. When we say making yourself resilient, make sure that you identify what can go wrong and then identify the right solution to make yourself resilient. It means building on top of what you had from business continuity. Yes, focus on emergency response and incident management. Means be reactive. Focus on disaster recovery. Means recovering your technology. Make sure you safeguard your people. Health, safety, and security is very important. Make sure you communicate to your stakeholders, internal management communications, customer communication, media communication through crisis management and communication. But then incorporate risk management, change management, supply chain management, and overall governance and compliance to ensure your entire ecosystem is resilient. Now, these words, unfortunately, we do not learn when we are in university. We don't learn anything about change management in a corporate world. Yes, we do learn about change management from software management perspective. What is supply chain management? What is compliance? What is governance? We don't talk about these things. So when a person like me enters from the university, leaves the university and enters to the corporate environment, and I'm working in a small organization, even let's say an organization with 5, 10 departments, 50 people doing 2 or 3 services only, even there, we don't understand what they're talking about because we have no idea about policies and procedures. We have no idea about risk management. We have no idea about how a corporate environment works and operates because we have never even seen it. We have never read about it. We have never even experienced it. So that change from university culture to the corporate culture becomes so drastic for us that we are unable to cope up with it. And we go in our shells, just keep doing what we know best, what we do. This is where we cut our wings. And this is exactly why I chose this topic today to make you guys understand this all of these things which you see in front of you on this specific slide. This is all you in the future. Every single aspect of whatever is mentioned on this slide right now is now depending on technology, cybersecurity, physical security. Today is almost 100%, I would say, depending on people. People who are making decisions based on technology. They are robots, they are drones, they are AI based systems, image recognition systems. Every single place you go, every single country, every high, you can say sensitivity, organization, defense, you name it. They're all using systems which are very much, you can say, mandatory to be there if we want to ensure our physical security. Our health and safety today is highly dependent upon systems. All the risks in corporate world right now, they are all tied to technology, availability of technology, availability of data, the integrity of data. We all see these things. But when you go to the corporate environment, you get to live these things. Even today, the compliance, not just security compliance or IT compliance, even the corporate compliance, that you have so many laws coming from the government, laws coming from the ministries and the regulatory authorities, all of those compliances are managed through different compliance systems. Who enables these systems to make sure they are up and running? People like me and you. I am doing it today. You'll be doing it in the future. So resilience is now cyber resilience. This is why this is our future. This is what we are going to do and see in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Then how we implement resilience in our environment, wherever we are. When I say that you can do it in your house, in your family, in your social circle, and in your corporate environment as well, you start by, first of all, anticipating and assessing what can go wrong, as I mentioned earlier. That's the first step. Whatever you do, ask yourself, am I doing it correctly? What can go wrong in whatever am I doing? The moment you identify what can go wrong, identify and ask the question, what can bring my service down, or what can make my things go wrong, what can result in a negative outcome? Assess the impact. Is that impact acceptable for you? If whatever you are doing goes in the wrong direction, is it going to impact your reputation in your team, reputation in your society, reputation in your social circle, or in your environment, in your organization? It may cost you. You may lose 100,000 rupees. You may lose a 1 million investment. An organization may lose 500 million rupees. Even one wrong decision can trigger that. Can they accept that? Of course not. So they have identified what can go wrong. Then they need to prevent it. Make sure you have the right process, the right systems available to make sure don't the events which you are dreading, they should not happen. The threats you identified, they should not occur. How can you implement it? How can you prevent it? If you're talking about technology perspective, we make sure whatever systems and softwares we implement, we test them in testing environment through unit testing, stress testing, UATs. We do all that stuff and then we implement it. But once we implement, what do we do? Do we keep monitoring or we let them live, let them go? Typically, we let them go. We don't monitor them. We don't monitor the size of the database, how drastically the database is growing. We don't monitor the load of the system. The system was designed maybe for 500 people, for 1,000 people, but the customer base, yeah. So how can you prevent them? The preventive controls from technology perspective, this is what I'm talking about, to make sure you apply monitoring controls. First of all, to detect what can go wrong and keep yourself one step ahead. For example, in databases, if you are using SQL, you're using Oracle or any database currently, monitor the size and the growth of the database. There's a concept called capacity management. So capacity management is all about making sure you enhance and increase your capacity of your systems and services before they run out. But the capacity management is not limited to only database. It's limited, it can expand to number of users which can connect simultaneously, number of concurrent connections allowed, number of licenses you have for your systems, for your softwares. Then the network which you have implemented, let's say the data usage or the bandwidth usage per user is around 25-30 kilobytes per second, and you have 1,000 concurrent connections. You're talking about 25 MB bandwidth consumption every single second. But the connection which you have is only 20 megabytes. What will this mean? There'll be congestion. The system response will be slow. Or sometimes you will receive service timeout or request timeout. What does this mean? For some of your customers, the service is unavailable. When you don't do these kind of preventive controls, So I'm talking about these things only on a very basic, on a high level. But when you go in a corporate environment, when you implement a SOC, for example, okay. So from security perspective, so if there's a virus, what's the worst can happen? You implement a system, you don't install a antivirus, sorry, or you bought an antivirus and you never renewed the license and the license expired. So definitions are not updating. Or you downloaded a very good antivirus, a trial program, and after trial, you never purchased the actual license. So now your service is running in a live environment, but the antivirus protection is totally unavailable. So the systems are going to be infected through virus. And not just virus, different malwares, which can come and infect your system and retrieve your data by leaking the data to outside world, or they can eventually encrypt your data and ask for money to return your data back, which is called ransomware. So from prevention perspective, you need to make sure that you implement software or tools in your security operations center to detect such kind of incidents or such kind of attacks or threats and prevent by mitigating. Means if you have all ports open for your system, only allow specific ports to communicate, and allow single direction communication from one port, other direction communication from the other port, and monitor those specific ports. Otherwise, terminate all other connections. So this way, you are going to make sure that at least communication is restricted to the right protocols, the right ports, and the right IP addresses are allowed to communicate to my system only. Then if you understand the concept of networks, then you understand what is an internal network, what is an external network, and what is a demilitarized zone or DMZ. If you have studied basic network terminologies, DMZ is an environment which is in the middle, not on the internet and not the core secure area within your organization. It's in the middle, means it is exposed slightly to the internet, but it does have some controls in place to make sure that if somebody is trying to attack your organization, you can prevent it while the attacker is still on the borders of your environment. So all of these are preventive controls. But can you prevent everything? Can you be 100% sure that I am always protected? Nothing can go wrong. The answer is no. We used to say a safe system means a system which is shut down. But even that saying has gone obsolete. Even if a system is shut down, the technology is there right now to retrieve data from a hard drive which is currently totally powered off. So what does it mean? You need to prevent yourself and protect yourself from all kind of threats which you are aware of. But the hackers are always one step ahead of you, at least from attacking perspective. You may identify signatures of 100,000 different malwares and viruses. They will come back with a new virus, which will have a different signature. So your antivirus will not be able to detect it because its signature is not there in the virus definitions. Your anti-malware software will not be able to detect the malware because it has never been reported before. So they are not aware of the behavior. These are things which we call zero-day attack. In cybersecurity perspective, when a zero-day attack happens to an organization, it's highly likely the system is going to be infected and nobody will be able to notice it. So you can do preventive controls as much as possible, but you need to think about plan B as well. What if something goes wrong? So we move ahead from prevention to preparedness and then response as well. So prepare and response go hand in hand. I need to prepare myself that if something goes wrong, I need to be ready so that the moment things go wrong, I will respond right away. That's why SOC is 24/7. Sorry, France saying something. France saying people in the corporation may have ideas The technology is there and there is well thought plan that can be implemented, but corporate didn't allocate resources exactly for execution just because the way things are going. So this is what happens. The mindset of the people in Pakistan, we call them the Sethia culture, the Sethia environment. कभी कुछ नहीं हुआ, आगे भी कुछ नहीं होगा. मैं 50 साल से बिजनेस चला रहा हूं, मेरा बिजनेस बंद नहीं हुआ, अभी भी नहीं होगा. And this mindset is not there just in Pakistan. We see this mindset everywhere. I've worked in UAE, I've worked in Saudi, I've worked in Qatar. Everywhere you go, this mindset prevails. This exists because the mindset is simple. I am running a huge organization of 10,000 people. I've never seen an outage. I've never seen a disruption. But that mentality changed if I talk about the tsunami which happened, which impacted Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Japan. The mindset changed there. In the last 3 years, at least I can say in the Middle East, because of the COVID, the mindset changed dramatically from business continuity perspective. Because there were so many of people who used to say, these pandemics, they are for third world countries, they are for Africa, India, these kind of countries. No, these they don't impact us. But the moment it happened here, they all ran to implement business continuity. They all started thinking about it very differently and very seriously. So the idea is if you are working in a corporate environment, if you are working in an organization, if you're working in an organization, you need to make sure you tell your management that understand the risk which you are taking by not investing in the right resources and the right tools and right means to respond and recover or mitigate whatever can go wrong. So as people like us, may of course when you will join the different organizations, we will be on a junior level, but you will have the say to convince your managers, your management, and then eventually the senior management what can go wrong and what needs to be done to make things right or keep things right. When I was a junior staff and one of the organizations I was working for, they had an incident. They did not have any idea what to do. So it was an open call for everyone. If you have a solution, come in front and lead the solution. So we came up with certain ideas and we gave them the ideas and we implemented the solutions. During COVID, the business continuity plans which we developed for different banks and different organizations, they were activated and they were triggered. Some of them, they recovered and maintained their services very successfully because they were actually making sure whatever we had designed for them, they were keeping it up to date and they were implementing it. Some of them who just developed business continuity for the sake of documentation or certification, they failed because they never implemented whatever we proposed. So make sure you prepare. Preparing is not just documentation, it's making sure you implement the right strategies, right solutions. And then the moment things go wrong, you respond. You respond through, if it's a physical security disaster, you respond through physical security measures. You have the police, you have the law enforcement agencies, you have the firefighters, you have first aid responders. All of them will respond. If it's an IT incident, the IT help desk and IT incident team is going to respond. If it's a cyber incident, the cybersecurity incident response teams are going to respond. All of them will respond with one specific agenda. Make sure the impact remains within our control. We do not let it go out of our hand. Because the moment it goes out of your control or out of your hands, means it is not a small incident anymore. It is going to be a disaster. And disasters, sometimes organizations never recover from them. Either they lose revenue, they lose data, they lose reputation, or they lose simply the customers. Because customers can say, I cannot trust on this organization anymore because they were unable to mitigate a very small incident. So I will go to an alternate service provider. I will go to an alternate bank, an alternate organization, which can give me the same service reliably. So having business continuity management or resilience in your organization basically builds the confidence in your customers and your stakeholders that if something goes wrong, this organization will reliably